We are about to start the road to Sharm el-Sheikh, and we have a firm finish at the end, so we'll be done at 5:30, also because our host today needs to leave on time. When we were planning the ARC, we were speaking with our friends from United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, so UNFCCC or UN Climate Change, Ariesta and Andrea, and they had the idea that the UNFCCC is actually perfectly capable of opening the festival with the first panel on national innovation systems and then giving the perfect outlook on the road to Sharm el-Sheikh. As you know, in November, there will be COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, a lot of preparation going on. One of the other co-hosts, for example, Petra Schwager running the UNIDO Energy, or part of the UNIDO Energy Division, was in Egypt these days preparing the conference. And I know our friends from UNFCCC are extremely busy already and will be after the latest in September preparing all that's about to come. So it is my pleasure. We are so happy to be co-hosting this with UNFCCC, UNIDO, and UNO Energy. And in this case, it's my pleasure to introduce the manager mitigation of UNFCCC, who's here tonight supporting the Global Innovation Hub of UNFCCC, which had a very big, lasted a very big impression at the last COP already. And I'd like to ask him on stage. He's the host officially, Masamba Tioe. Please give him a warm applause.
Thank you, Peter, and good afternoon to those that are in the room, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to those that are watching virtually. I'm really pleased to be here and have this opportunity to share with you what the UNFCCC is doing in terms of promoting innovation for climate and sustainability. And I would like to thank FCA and Peter for giving us this opportunity. So I was very pleased to see that a lot of things are going on. Actually, a lot of climate and sustainability solutions are under development, but we feel that we can do more. Innovation has not yet been fully mobilized to effectively support climate and sustainability. And why is it like that? Next slide, please. The problem is that we lack moonshot thinking. Generally, when we are setting targets, our targets are based on our perception of what is possible. We will look at the financial instruments that are available to us. We will look at the technology and the policy that are available in our environment. And this is based on that we set target and commitment. So it means that then the technology and policies that are already available dictate the level of ambition that we have. And because we do not have all the policy, all the technology, all the climate and sustainability solution that we need for 1.5 degree goal, for example, our ambitions are not aligned with the 1.5 degree goal. But the problem is that the lack of availability of climate and sustainability solution at scale on the one hand, and the lack of ambition at the other hand, are stuck in a vicious circle because each of them is at the same time cause and consequence of the other one. Because if you will ask to those that are developing climate and sustainability solution why we do not have all the climate and sustainability solution we need at scale to respond to the climate and sustainability challenge, they will say because there is no demand, because there is no ambition. So low ambition dictate low level of climate and sustainability solution, and low climate and sustainability solution dictate low ambition. So there was a need to break this vicious circle, and this is one of the things the Climate Innovation Hub of the UNFCCC Secretariat would like to do. Next slide. Okay, so this is just to represent quickly this issue of creative tension, which is extremely important for innovation. So if you set ambitious goal, you create creative tension that are extremely powerful to promote innovation. But what happens very often is that instead of using ambitious vision for creative tension, we have the emotional tension that put pressure to lower the vision, and this is actually what happened. And when this is the case, you do not see the need for collaboration, you do not see the need for more effort, you just lower your commitment and your ambition. Next slide. Yeah, and the problem is that once it is like that, you are not working on the right problem. And I would like just to illustrate this by this guy who lost its key in the dark and is looking for the key under the light. And when it was asked, but why are you looking for your key here? They are not lost here, they are lost in the dark. He says, this is because this is where the light is. So what is happening currently with the climate crisis is very similar to what I have illustrated here. We are not working on the right problem. We are working on the wrong problem because the level of ambition is not what is needed to achieve our long-term goal. Next slide. Yeah, so to address this issue, what we are promoting is to have, let's say, 3 types of target for all types of entities. We understand that most of the entities are not willing to make targets that are beyond their capability. So what we are promoting is to have 3 types of target for corporates, for financial, for subnational, as well as national government. They can set one target which is aligned with their capability, and then set another target that is aligned with what is needed, that will be aligned with the 1.5 degree goal and the sustainability goal. And the gap between these 2 types of target will be translated into demand for climate and sustainability solution. So this is what I can do. This is what I need to do. The gap between the 2, I translate it into a demand for climate and sustainability solution. Because if we do that, we will at least know what the problem is. What is it that we need to address? And then all this demand for climate and sustainability solution will be aggregated into one single global demand for climate and sustainability solution. And we are encouraging all entities to make a 3rd target, which is to contribute to the global demand for climate and sustainability solution. This is what collaboration is all about. The level of collaboration that we have currently among nations and even within countries is not enough to address the global challenge that we are facing. We need much more collaboration. So we need radical collaboration. We need these 3 types of target, and then it can lead to enhanced ambition, and it can also support successful implementation of climate and sustainability action. Next slide. Yeah, another issue that is really important is to go deep to the issue. Generally, what we are trying to address, the challenge that we are facing, we stop at the level of event, and sometimes we can go down to the level of pattern, but we are still addressing the visible part of the iceberg. The part that is under the water, and which is the most important part, is not really addressed. So the systemic structure as well as the mental models. I talk about the lack of moonshot thinking, but we have also a lot of problem related to this mental model, the lack of system thinking, and so and so. Next slide. So this is a representation of the environment in which we are working currently. Everything is designed to maintain the current system for wealth production. So the natural resources are only input to the system for wealth production. So individual people are employees and consumers that are supporting the system for wealth production. The environment, to a large extent, is considered as a place where waste can be actually dumped. It could be in the air, in the water, in the soil, and so and so. Even innovation is focusing mainly at the sectoral level. And I will share with you later on what is the alternative approach or the complementary approach, because we need that, but we need to do more than that to be able to address the challenge that we are facing. And even the carbon budget, if you are saying this is the carbon budget left for the world, this carbon budget is allocated to sector and not to core human need. And all these things are limiting the capability to address the challenge of climate and sustainability. Next slide. This is what we are promoting. Instead of putting at the center the system for wealth production, we need to put people and the planet at the center and try to address the core human need people are facing. So it means that the economics need to serve the social while being aligned with the constraints that are in place related to the environment. And one important aspect here, and confirmed by many of the discussions that I have heard today, is that we need to work at the sectoral level. We need to use innovation to improve at the sectoral level. But we need to be mindful that this can only lead to incremental change, because we keep the same product, we keep the same processes, we keep the same value chain, and we try to improve them. For example, in relation to climate, what we'll try to do is to decrease the carbon footprint of existing product, value chain, and processes. This is important. This has to be done, but it will not be enough to address the challenge that we are facing. To address the challenge that we are facing, we need to go back to the core human need. The product and processes are satisfying, and ask ourselves how innovation can be used to develop alternative value chain that can satisfy the same core human need while being aligned with the climate goal, while being aligned with the sustainability goal, while providing flourishing life to 10 billion people by 2050, while enhancing biodiversity, and while contributing to land regeneration. This is very important, and this is only if we take the problem holistically and try to address all these points at the same time with a systemic approach, that we can address the problem without creating another problem, because we are very good in solving problem, but we are not good in avoiding problem. Next slide. Yeah, and this is just to represent the way it works. You have biodiversity, you have land regeneration, you have climate. You have to address the 16 SDG together. Otherwise, it will not work, because you will see only one part of the problem, and if you focus on addressing this part of the problem, it will not work. I heard a lot talking about value chain, particularly the hydrogen value chain. This is how it works. If you focus on one part of the value chain and you do not see the bigger picture, you will not be able to address the problem. And again, sustainability cannot be addressed within one country separately. It has to be addressed globally. We cannot work on this at the national level only, because it will never work. We are completely interlinked, and I think the COVID crisis have shown that this type of global challenge has to be addressed at the global level. Next slide. Yeah, this is just to illustrate where we are currently and where we need to move in the future. So currently the focus is only at the sectoral level, and we are problem focused. So all the entities are behaving as problem solver. I want to reduce my own emission. I commit to be net zero, but nobody is committing to provide solution that others can use to reduce their emission. And we will only succeed in addressing this big challenge if all the entities are also solution provider. It could be big tech company, it could be subnational government or national government. Yes, we need to work on our own problem, but we need to also develop solutions that others are able to use to reduce their emission. Next slide. Just to illustrate what I'm saying here in concrete example, if you take a city that is trying to reduce its emission, it will focus at the sectoral level. We talk about building, transport, and so and so. And when it comes to transport, the immediate reaction that will be to replace combustion car with electric vehicle. So we heard a lot about storage and electric vehicle. This is important. This needs to be done, but again, it will not be enough. We need to ask ourselves, why do we need car at the first place? Because moving from combustion car to electric vehicle is good, but having less car is even better. And if we ask the question, why do we need car? The response would be, we need car for mobility. Are there alternative ways of satisfying this need of mobility without using car? Can we use innovation to design our city differently so that they are more compact, more connected, and related among themselves with very efficient public transportation, so that all products and services are at walking or at biking distance? But we can even go one step further if we want innovation to be more transformative and ask ourselves, but why do we need mobility? So we will say we will need mobility because we want to have access to products and services. We want to be able to go to office for work. We want to bring our children to school and so and so. We can here again see that the core need is access. Can we leverage technology, innovation, to address this core human need of access differently without needing mobility? It does not mean that I'm saying we should not be mobile. What I'm saying is it should not be a constraint. We should choose to be mobile to satisfy our needs or to satisfy our need differently. Another slide, next, is on the example of nutrition. We can have a sectoral approach, which is a more incremental approach, where we will focus on trying to reduce, for example, the carbon footprint related to animal farming. But another approach is to say we need to rethink how to satisfy the core human need of nutrition and health by developing alternative products like plant-based protein. Next slide. Yeah, another important element also is we need to think holistically when it comes to the leverage point. What are the leverage points on which we need to act to address a given demand for climate and sustainability solution? Technology alone, technology is extremely important, but innovative technology alone will not address the climate and sustainability challenge. It has to be combined with innovative policy instrument, innovative financial instrument, innovative business model, innovative cooperative approach, and social innovation if we want nobody to be left behind. And all these things need to be driven by demand. It's why this demand for climate and sustainability solution I have mentioned at the beginning of my intervention, which are arising from the gap between what is needed and what is perceived as possible. This demand is what should drive innovation using all these levels. Next slide. Yeah, and this will allow us to move from the vicious circle to a virtuous circle where with the three different commitments that countries and cities and corporate are making, and with some enabling instrument, we can move from what was a vicious circle to what will become here a virtuous circle, where we will have more NDC committing to provide climate and sustainability solution, more ambitious conditional NDCs, and more climate innovation, and finally, more ambitious, unconditional NDCs. Next slide. Yeah, so this is the Innovation Hub, and this is what we are trying to, these issues that we are trying to address. It's mainly two things: a digital platform where this demand for climate and sustainability solution will be a store. And then we have on the Global Innovation Hub a search engine that will go out and look for a solution if the solution exists already. And where there is a solution are missing, we will broadcast a demand for climate solution so that those that are working as solution provider can work on the system. So we will organize a lot of challenge for startup and all solution provider to work on the problem. So on the digital tool, we will have AI engine that will be human supported, that will help us combine the right technology with the right policy and the right financial instrument. So we have also a physical hub in the form of pavilion at COP, and I will not go into the detail because my colleague later on will address that aspect. And finally, we'll have working groups around the different core human needs. The first working group that has been put in place is the one on nutrition and health, and the focus of this working group will be how can we satisfy this core human need by using innovation to develop alternative value chain that are aligned with the climate and sustainability goal. Next slide. Yeah, so this is a visualization of the virtual hub. And as you can see, it will have several functions. The starting point is a need-based backcasting scenario, because we want to, here again is a conceptual problem. We want to be always forward-looking. So this is where we would like to be in the future that determine what we are doing now. So we start from where we want to be in the future, and we use a backcasting normative scenario to identify what are the solutions that are required currently. And then database for demand for climate and sustainability solution, automated specification of demand. These are the different functionality, deep search engine, a curation system. When we will find solution, we will curate them and see whether these solutions are aligned with the objectives that we are trying to achieve. So broadcasting missing solution, organizing challenge, and once we have the solution ready, we will use digital twin to simulate what will be the impact of the solution on our different objectives. Next slide. Yeah, here I would like very quickly to talk about one of the instruments that will be on the platform, which is a new framework for green bond. But I will pass through very quickly because I know that we do not have a lot of time left. This is to summarize combining the carbon market and the green bond market, because we want to achieve two things. One, we want to address the issue of greenwashing that is very much present in the green bond system as it is known currently, but at the same time make green bond attractive to mainstream finance. So maybe next slide, just quickly. So what we are doing is very similar to what is happening in the electricity sector with the renewable electricity certificate. So if you buy electricity in the renewable electricity market, you get the electricity, but you get also the green attribute of the electricity in the form of renewable electricity certificate. That's what we are trying to do here. You get the bond, and then you get with the bond what we call a mitigation outcome security, which is a promise to deliver in the future the green attribute of the activities that will be financed with the proceed of your green bond. Next slide. Yeah, and quickly, this is what the way green bond will be defined. Next slide. Yeah, and instead of having the corporate at the center, we would like to have the financier at the center so that we can mobilize finance from the private sector. So the idea is to use carbon finance to leverage climate finance from the private sector. Next slide. Yeah, and these are the benefits that we have by doing all these things: transparency, objectivity, and environmental integrity. We do not have anymore the issue of use of proceed, because we know what the money will be used for, because you have the green credit appended to the bond, optimal use of public climate finance, mobilization of private climate finance, and so and so. Next slide. Yeah, and we are actually pilot testing this initiative with all these organizations, with the Bank for International Settlement, Bank of England, AIIB, and all these organizations. And actually, because the carbon credit will be tokenized, and we are developing the system that will allow to test it and see how impactful it will be. And there is already one bank that would like to issue a green bond based on this framework. So this is a means for subnational government to issue sovereign bond and use the proceeds of the bond to finance a startup and solution provider. Next slide. Yeah, another important aspect here I would like to highlight is that to address climate, we are focusing on the problem, the emitter, the corporate. But it's very important also to look at the enabler that are around the corporate and that can make things change. One critical enabler is the financier, one critical enabler is the policymaker, the technology provider, and also the consumer, the individual citizen who can accept to pay a premium for a green product. So it is important to be able to recognize their contribution, all this enabling entity, and to be able to incentivize their action. To do so, you need to have a system that allows you to measure their climate contribution. If I'm a startup and I'm working on decreasing the cost of solar panel and increasing their efficiency, we do not have in the current GHG accounting system any system that allows to recognize the contribution of that startup and to incentivize the startup, because we are working at the end pipe on the user, at the user side, but we have nothing that is actually recognizing and incentivizing those entities that are working to develop the solution in the current carbon market. This will help address this. So there is one initiative at the European Union, the European Green Digital Coalition, that aim exactly at addressing this issue for the ICT sector. Because the ICT sector, they are enabler, they provide solutions that others can use in other sectors to reduce their emission, and they would like their contribution to be recognized and measured. Next slide. Yeah, the physical hub, I will jump over because my colleague will come. This is the photo of the physical hub at COP26. My colleague will come more in detail on this. Next. Yeah, and just to say that true compassion to this quote of Martin Luther King is more than flinging a coin to a beggar. It understands that an edifice which produces beggar needs restructuration. So we need to go deep. We should not focus on what is superficial. Next, I think that is our website, and that's the end of my presentation. Now, next step, we would like to have a 2-5 chat with Peter and Miriam, but you know, who is, she is at the Urban Transition Mission, and they are also working a lot on how innovation can be leveraged to support climate action and sustainability action by cities. So I don't know whether Miriam is already online.
We can try to bring him on.
Yeah. And maybe I can sit now.
I'm not the, oh, there they are.
Hi. Can you see me or hear me?
We can hear you well.
Do not.
Okay, so
Can you hear me well?
So
Yes.
good afternoon, Miriam, and thank you for joining us in this very interesting event. So I'm here with you and Peter, and I would like just to interact with you on what you have heard. So you have seen the presentation made on the Global Innovation Hub. How do you think the Global Innovation Hub can support the different initiatives on which you are working? Maybe starting with you, Peter.
Thank you so much, Masama. First of all, thank you for this extraordinary presentation. It differed a lot. Over the past days, we've looked at nitty-gritty details, often of technologies. Well, this is really a big view on where innovation can be taken and how holistically you're seeing this. Now, we had Vanessa, who's also from UNIDO, is also in the audience, and myself, we were pleased to support the last Innovation Hub when you kicked it off at COP26, and I was just struck by how many impactful corporates you've brought together and how broad the range of stakeholders in the innovation process is that basically came to the UNFCCC Innovation Hub. And in specifying that a little, I remember you had both the digital corporate worlds that do a lot of innovation, and innovation is in their DNA. There was Google, there was Facebook, there were all these, Bloomberg was there as a media, as an information group. And at the same time, we met also a lot of industry players who are working in the heavy industries. So to wrap up, to try to wrap up your question in one answer, I think the UNFCCC is allowed to, or has the option to gather partners together that would otherwise not come together, and to take an approach that is so holistic and sometimes aloof and abstract that if you remember the discussion we had before with startups that are so much, or scale-ups that are so much caught in the bubble, of course, of trying to secure the next finding, of trying to take the next step, hire the next employee or whatever, that this high-level bird's-eye perspective approach is very helpful in making sure that in the discussion we have the priorities of our innovation systems right. As you said, let's not talk about, hey car, let's take another car, or how can we make the car less pollutant, but what is the need, how can we solve mobility needs best, looking maybe also 20, 30 years in future?
Thank you, Peter. Miriam, very pleased to have you here. So can you also share with us your view on how the work of the Global Innovation Hub can actually support the initiative you are involved in?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I would much more like to be there with you, because it seems really a lively and interesting conversation also on the ground. So I'm here bringing the voice of the cities. I work for the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy, which is the largest global alliance for city climate action, and brings together more than 11,000 cities around the world, representing over 1 billion people. And we try to support them through data-based decision-making, critical funding access, innovative solutions. And there is already thousands of cities that are really working and showing what ambitious climate action is, but we see definitely that there is a need to accelerate action, to work more collaborative, and to bring more innovation on the ground. And so we are very pleased that we collaborate with the Global Innovation Hub on the Urban Transitions Mission, which is an initiative under the framework of Mission Innovation, bringing together 22 countries plus European Commission, really on multi-level collaboration, multi-partnership, multi-sectoral approach, and really trying to accelerate. We do welcome also this really integrated approach and the human-centered and the needs value on the mission. So we are integrating different existing initiatives and programs that are already tackling net zero, resilience, and just transition. And we would like to do a sort of master city road mapping that can be adaptable and take into consideration different contexts in the world, and build the capacity for the transitions in cities and with local stakeholders, so that this kind of festivals where you really talk to the level of the startup, which are the ones that actually apply the innovation in cities, and that's really nice. And also we support under R&I, so research and innovation for priorities, trying to really implement it on with support of national government and national budget, so somehow. So I think the involvement of the of the hub in the Global Innovation Alliance, which is this group that supports a net zero transition in cities, is really welcome and will bring even it is already the value of human patient. And I personally appreciate really a lot the idea of valuing the needs on top of the solutions, because I think that can really raise ambition also on cities and on the typical politician approach that may be shy to share, where the challenge is. And instead, it's really nice to be part of the solution also with a challenge that it becomes a demand for solutions. So I really think it's wonderful to have this approach and to start from the needs and the needs assessment. That's nice.
Thank you. Thank you, Miriam. Maybe another question to you, Peter, before we check whether there are questions from the room. So we are talking a lot about the twin green digital transition. It seems that digital technology is really powerful to support the green transition. Why is it like that? What are the specificities of digital technology that make them be enabler of big transformation for green transition?
Thank you, Masama. I think actually it's a two-sided sword in a way. We've been discussing over the past days with companies from the digital space or innovators working in this field, large ones like SAP, just as smaller innovators. And after all, I mean, the whole energy system of many nations is in a radical transformation. We're coming from a demand-following large power plant system that could be switched on. It took a long time to switch them on, but they could follow the demand as it was over the course of the day by industry and customers, end customers. And now we have this intermittency dominated renewables, more and more renewables-based systems where supply has to follow demand in a way. And for that, digital technologies are extremely helpful. But that's just one example. A second is we've been speaking about hydrogen pretty extensively. And there we spoke about the different colors. So green hydrogen, for example, needs some kind of verification that in a mixed system, of course, which will contain gray and green and possibly other kinds of hydrogen, the authenticity or the origin needs to be verified. Digital technologies can help a lot, just as we've seen during the pandemic with a lot of other things where we can avoid emissions right away. On the other hand, just digitizing everything is not holistic enough, quoting your words. And we also have to, of course, see, and we had an example also of how the waste heat of data centers can be used, because the digital space comes with a big carbon footprint. I've recently seen figures, it's around the carbon emissions of aviation, roughly, if we take all the digital tools together. I don't have the exact figures here. But it is the enabler, in my view, to transform the energy system. But we always need to look at, similar in the style of car and mobility, what do we want to achieve and how much, what downside does the digitization bring?
Maybe we can check whether there are questions coming from the room.
Maybe somebody from the FCA team can grab a mic and hand it around if there's questions.
If there is no question from the room, maybe we can now move to the next part, the last part. I have my colleague who will make a presentation from Bonn. But before that, I think there is a small video on the Global Innovation Hub that we would like to share with the audience.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Masamba. So I'm coordinating them remotely with my colleagues on site to display the slides and then the video. I see that you can see the first slide. So in this section, I will provide you with an appetizer to COP27 that includes the video, summarizing a little bit of what was presented by Masamba in the first part of this session, and then we will discuss a little bit of our plans around the Global Innovation Hub roadmap to COP27. So if we can move to the next slide, then we will be able to watch the 2 minutes video.
And private sector leadership. We know it from the science.
We get the full
And
sound.
from the evidence of our own eyes. The world is running out of time on climate change. So why are solutions so elusive? Maybe we ask the wrong questions. For example, instead of asking how to reduce emissions from cars, why don't we ask where people need to go and what they need to get, and then find low-carbon solutions? Instead of just asking how to make offices energy efficient, why don't we ask what kind of space modern work requires? We should focus on what's needed, not what's currently possible. We need innovative mindsets, and we need everyone, policymakers, tech leaders, finance experts, builders, thinkers, doers, everyone around the table. The United Nations Climate Change Global Innovation Hub provides that urgently needed platform for cross-disciplinary action. Harnessing the convening power of the United Nations, with public and private sector leadership, the Hub is building digital tools to bridge demand and supply of climate solutions and to measure impact in line with the Paris Agreement goals. We are gathering experts and providing them space to work together in radical collaboration. Innovation is not an event or even a process. Innovation is a culture. We're building that culture to win the fight against climate change.
Carlos, can you hear us?
Thank you. Yes, very, very well. So we can move to the next slide. So the next session, part of the slides will give you a little bit of an appetizer of what we are planning to put together from the operational point of view to synchronize the approach and the concept that Masamba introduced at the beginning. So as you can see, we have two major components. as part of our plan to COP27. The first is the digital or virtual hub that will include a prototype that will be launched and made available at COP. The idea is to have this platform as platform of platforms that will enable a radical collaboration, and it will be based on need base, and from there we will deep search and match solutions that are available out there. And in those cases where there isn't clear solutions available, then we will have an open space so that the enablers can work on it. In addition to the virtual hub, we will have the physical hub that is similar to the one that was presented before by Masamba, follow the dialogues at COP26. We are planning to have a pavilion as well, stimulating some dialogues and discussions along the things and the needs that we hear along these 2 days. And this will also be much around the dimensions on the need-based approach of cities, subnational governments and governments, and how enablers can then help them based on this demand to work on existing solutions, but also to create new innovation spaces so that the enablers can work and supply their climate contribution accordingly. Next slide, please. So this package of infrastructure, actually, it's also covering a number of activities that will be grouped into 11 categories of deliverables. So to simplify, I think it's one slide before. Yeah. To simplify, we group them into 5 different categories to give you a flavor of the activities that we are undertaking. So in addition to the digital collaboration platform that will be launched as a prototype at COP27, there will be digital questionnaires that will help to systematically collect the demands initially from cities on 5 different core human needs, as explained by Masamba before. But to support this work, we have a governance structure that is being put in place, of course, with the steering and advisory committees, but also very important to flag the launching of the high-level working group on nutrition and health that will be starting their activities soon. And by COP, we will have the 3rd round of interactions, and they will provide the expert guidance on what will be feeding into the digital platform, and their work will be also broadcasted at COP27. We have a number of collaboration and engagement milestones that includes, of course, the expansion of our core partners, the resource mobilization and partnership. So these efforts cannot be a success without a strategic partnership. So we are working with them and also position the activities, as you can see, on a number of key milestones, like, for example, participating in visual events like the recent negotiation process, where we have a couple of roundtables and also side events, and we are engaged on the Climate Week. And this platform this week at the art festival is an example of some of these milestones. We are also working with governments and core partners on advancing the work on the ambition and implementation for NDCs and long-term strategies and their linkages with Article 6. So there will be also in the dialogues some progress on championing with countries that will be benefiting from the need-based approach and the platform and infrastructure that we are putting together. And the frameworks, I won't go into the details, but the framework will be really an interesting platform for enablers to start working, of course, with the government, the parties, but also with the cities and national government. So this will stimulate also enablers like finance, but also collaboration and business models, leadership, and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. So this is an appetizer to invite you to look into these developments. The details are located into our dynamic website, so you have the link there, and you can see also some of the reports from the recent events, where actually the messages, for example, from countries on the roundtables, but also on other areas connecting to these activities and milestones that I mentioned, and our engagement with GCOM and other core partners like MI Rise or Climate Kick. They are always placed and posted to your disposal in our website. If you have any questions or you need further guidance or you have any feedback towards COP27, please don't hesitate to write us and send us an email, so you have that on the screen. And next slide, please. And one of the key tools that we use for planning purposes and to outreach as well the activities and engagement is the use of Trello that is connected to our website. So this is extremely dynamic, so please don't hesitate to visit us and to see the latest updates on the plans towards COP27. So with that short presentation, our team and our activities at UNFCCC towards COP27 remains at your disposal. Thank you very much. Over to you, Masamba.
Thank you. Maybe just to close this session, to say that we want the Global Innovation Hub to be a movement, and you are all invited to join that movement. It requires collaboration to implement successfully what we would like to do, and you are all invited to join this collaboration and to contribute. Thank you, and back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Masamba. Please give a round of applause to these great panelists here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to Bonn and wherever you're located right now. I know how much you all have to do. I really do. And it's a pleasure you take the trouble and come over and host such a session, structure it. Carlos joined in, even though he would have loved to be here, but it's not possible for certain reasons. And yeah, this brings the whole festival to an end, and which seems kind of surreal. And it was really good kicking it off with UNFCCC and closing it down, if you like, with the road to Sharm el-Sheikh. So I would like to thank you and wish the UNFCCC team and the UNIDO team, of course, especially also our colleagues in ITPO Germany and Nigeria who are here, and the InnoEnergy team, all the best for the hard road ahead in pushing the clean tech innovation. And I would like to thank all others who've come and the panelists who've come, that you took the journey to Remscheid, which has not been on the clean tech map, except for last year when we did the UNIDO Global Call and attributed some prizes to global innovators. And yeah, with this, I would thank you all. If you want to see if there is a ARC 23, you should get our newsletter and see how we decide, because first of all, we take some rest and rebuild everything. I would like to ask our team on stage, but I can't really because they're in the other locations, building things back, handing mics back to people where we've borrowed it. And so thank you all. Thank you, Masamba, again. Thank you to Bonn. And have a safe journey home. And it was a pleasure having all of you here, and hope to see you all again soon. Thank you.